JD, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to start out like we always do. Give me your spiel. Let us know who you are.
All right. Well, my name is JD Sanchez, and I fancy myself a bit of a digital pioneer, exploring emerging technologies, mastering them early, and being able to leverage their potential to drive either business success or, just build revenue, right, if you will. So from hand coding websites to architecting and leading digital transformations, helping businesses harness new technology has been an incredibly rewarding journey for me, as it lets me leverage my strategic thinking, my technical expertise, and also my business savvy to be able to build out innovative solutions that really make a difference. Right now, I'm leading an AI-driven claims transformation in insurance for a company called CSAA Insurance Group. We're one of the insurers of AAA insurance, home and auto. And we offer insurance in 23 different states. We have over 3,000 employees and have $4 billion in direct written premium.
We are going to dig into what AI transformation looks like in insurance claims in a moment.
I'm excited.
But I want to take a step back. Let's do a little time travel, if you will, and tell me a story about the first time that you interacted with AI. And you can define AI however you want. In fact, that's kind of the interesting part, right?
All right. We'll do generative AI to keep it interesting. So this was probably, back in early 23, late 22, but it was like many folks, ChatGPT, that experience. And I started out quite skeptical. I wanted to really test its capabilities against my own marketing experience, against my own, like I said, business savvy. And so I was going to put it through the ringer. And the approach that I took was to have it build out a business plan at a very high level for a business that's, on my life's to-do list to start a outpatient rehab facility in a certain city. And so I started very broad with a business plan, just some general marketing, kind of branding ideas. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, this is actually quite good. This isn't just a gimmick. Let me dial it in further. And so I don't know how many hours I lost, but I was into the demographics of this particular town, basically taking, national rates of disease, interventions, falls, emergency medicine visits, trying to extrapolate that to that particular locale. I was into the color theory and interior design that might best resonate with baby boomers and these types of folks. I was looking at business names that could scale from just a small, maybe one therapy type focus to bringing in other domains of therapy, scalable kind of product branding. Like, okay, so if I want to offer other services, or if I want to not be a conglomerate, but if I want to transition to private equity, like I was down the rabbit hole. And I finally got to a point where I was so deep into it, I got so upset because it couldn't give me traffic patterns and like walking flow.
Damn it, ChatGPT!
Exactly. For a particular intersection, for a brick and mortar possible location. And, now that I say that out loud, now that it's multimodal, I could probably go back and upload satellite from Google Earth and scrape, Google Maps traffic patterns.
It's true.
My life has not been the same ever since.
I love that story because it shows like that journey of, okay, let's see what you can do, to holy hell. This is a partnership here. This is allowing me to daydream and bring ideas into words or into visualizations in a way that I never could before, or might not have taken the time, even given myself the time to do that. Yeah. And I'm sure that's, happening in countless organizations. I know it's happening in lives all the time. And we're seeing people light up LinkedIn with like, here's how you can do this and this and this. Okay. So from that was a pretty personal experience, right? You daydreaming with ChatGPT and coming up with a business plan.
Absolutely.
But talk to me about how you're interacting with generative AI on a daily basis now. Are you interacting with it on a daily basis?
Yeah. Oh, of course, certainly.
Yeah.
I will break this down into maybe a professional capacity and then also personal capacity. Right now, I'm currently leading this AI-driven claims transformation. So there's everything associated with that. But I think what might be more beneficial to the listeners is, okay, outside of that, how am I leveraging AI in a professional capacity that might be a new idea or something that might be a game changer for them? So obviously, maybe not obviously, but email drafting. It seems like a use case that folks are kind of, okay, yeah, I make an email. Well, I guess I should apologize to any employees or colleagues that might read this. Yes, I'll use AI to draft some of my emails, and I'll use it to draft an apology email to you. But really, it's about that next layer. So is this delivered in the right way that's going to resonate with the recipient? Critiquing of these email drafts. Make sure that it's diplomatic. Make sure that anything that I might have been written in haste or the types of emails that historically you should sleep on and send tomorrow, you can evaluate, you can have that refinement and get it out in a more timely capacity. Another way that I use it day to day is to help me with my SQL queries. So when you're looking at a database and you're trying to get some insights, you have data arranged in different tables, different columns, different labels, different data types. And it can be very difficult to ask the database, if you will, for the type of information or insights that you're looking for. And so being able to use kind of a semantic interface like a conversational, a large language model to basically tell it, hey, here's the columns and rows that we're working with. Here's the names of the tables. Here's kind of what's in there, either categorically or thematically. And then here's what I'm hoping to learn. Well, I've discovered large language models are very, very helpful in constructing those queries and being able to let maybe a non-technical person get those insights on demand that they need at an ad hoc basis. I think another way that it's been very helpful for me professionally is with PowerPoints, but not in just a, hey, draft me a PowerPoint, more so, here's the information I'm trying to convey. Help me select some icons that resonate. Or here's a very complex process flow that I'm trying to capture on a slide. Please give me ideas to help emphasize these aspects of it or to craft a visualization. And even just through a language interface, large language models can be very descriptive and then essentially hold your hand and guide you to produce something that's impactful and efficacious for the business.
I saw something cool on your LinkedIn that I want to call out because I'm a nerd for this type of stuff. You have different personas of experts, and I'm assuming that these are personas you can kind of program AI to be.
Correct. Yes.
Can you talk me through a little bit of that approach and why you came up with it to begin with?
A lot of folks tend to anthropomorphize AI, artificial intelligence, make it a person, or build an avatar for it. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about AI agents or agentic workflows or any type of point solutions or processes where you might leverage AI. And so the waters are quite muddy around what AI agents might be or what might not they be, and at what point is it an agent from just a prompt or a series of prompts. And to help myself navigate that, I I effectively did associate different types of use cases or vantage points, how one might leverage large language models or AI models into these personas, which resonates with their function. So for instance, I came up with the idea of the firefighter persona. So that's a reactive AI agent. So depending on what sort of data that might be feeding into it, it's just very quick on the fly sorts of decisions. If you had an autonomous agent, that might be the adventurer. And so that's an agent that has its own autonomy and can make its own decisions and train and refine. You have your student, which can learn and change and fine tune and change on the fly. You also have the watchmaker, which is trained on very, very specific tasks. The watchmaker being somebody that's dedicated their career and life to perfecting one specific craft. There's a handful more like the detective, the butler, and the kitchen brigade, and then also the referee to represent the enterprise agent. And that exercise of crafting these personas in an illustrative type of way, joining them with their function, has allowed me to kind of solidify potential ways to apply AI throughout the enterprise and has also helped me realize that for the enterprise, there's only so much you can do with this exciting technology. You have to be compliant. You can't introduce bias. You have to make sure that you're making objective, repeatable sorts of decisions or determinations leveraging this technology. And that whole journey got me to this idea of a referee. And so I'll take another moment to explain the referee persona. Think of like a soccer referee. They have to make unbiased decisions without favoring team A or team B, without letting either their previous performance, the players' backgrounds, what might be happening in the news or headlines, or the games that they've played before, or the fans in the stadium. Like none of that can matter. They just have to call it how they see it by a clear set of defined rules. And to me, that represents the enterprise agent, and having that completely unbiased, focused type of application of the technology, that's where I think we net out for the enterprise.
Okay, so I'm seeing a pattern here, JD, and that is somebody who is you seem to have a natural predilection for almost storytelling or a narrative point of view about how technical stuff works, how these really highly complex processes come together to create a greater narrative. Do you think that's an accurate observation?
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment, an observation and a compliment. Thank you. Yes, it's true.
Where do you think that comes from in you? What in your background do you think takes you to that point?
My career has been built on being at the forefront of these emerging technologies. And what that means is that oftentimes the people around you, potential customers, employers, your manager, your family, even your friends, they might not understand what you do, what you're doing, or how you do it. And I've struggled with folks thinking that you're a wizard, despite the difficulty of maybe the ask or the objective. So you can help with something on Outlook, or you can undergo a complete digital transformation. The level of wizardry is they don't understand the difference there. And so having to explain maybe more advanced concepts succinctly, clearly, for those that aren't well versed in technology or technical terms, don't have the context, I think that's led me to some of this storytelling, and maybe reading a lot of books when I was a child and not being able to watch TV. Maybe that might have had something to do with it, but that's how we got here.
What kind of books were you into as a kid?
Oh my goodness, that's a fantastic question. So I hope I still have it. If my mother's thrown them out, I'd be heartbroken. But I had the entire Hardy Boys collection. So, Joe, Frank, and Chet in the hardcover. There are these old blue books. We'd go to the used bookstore, and I would just see if there was one of like maybe the 56 books whatever it was. You'd go to the used bookstore, and like maybe there'd be some on the shelf, and I have this one, I don't have that one. Just mostly the Hardy Boys growing up.
Cool. So, and my storyteller self is already being like, okay, so how do we turn this into a metaphor? Because the Hardy Boys are always trying to figure things out as a team and trying to get to the bottom of things. Do you feel like that's an aspect of you too?
Oh, absolutely. Being in the type of work that I do, you have to be a forward-thinking problem solver. And you're trying to figure out complex problems, not complicated problems. Complicated problems are those that other folks have figured out before you. And they might require a lot of steps. There might be some intricacies, variety of ways to go wrong. And you might need documentation to actually get to the solution. But complex problems require novel solutions, or you to kind of think it out for yourself. And so, yeah, absolutely. If you want to go to a few boy detectives solving mysteries on their bicycles and figuring problems out, to leveraging AI for a large enterprise, yeah, absolutely.
Well, how does that play out in a large enterprise? So let's talk about insurance claims. Let's jump from the Hardy Boys to insurance claims. How did you get there?
How did I get there? Wow. Okay. It's been quite a journey, and I'm certainly happy to humor you here. And so I started out my career as basically a web developer. I guess my career started off with acupuncture. I had a college professor who sent all of his computer information system students, hundreds, by the way, to a website, an acupuncture website. And he said, click on these ads, 5 ads, and tell me how relevant they were to the website. And that was like the homework assignment. And this was maybe like I don't know if it's a 200 level undergrad course. And it's like the type where you have like maybe 300 kids and anyway, there's probably at least 1,000 kids in this curriculum, right? And then I later find out that he's the owner of this website and he was making money with every single click of all of these hundreds of kids, and he had them all click 5. And I'm like, that's a brilliant idea. Not to, leverage your position to generate traffic in person to the internet, but to be able to build these websites that essentially work for you all day long, day in, day out, and generate revenue through traffic monetization. And so I was like, okay, I want to do this. I need to do this. And so I actually taught myself, HTML, CSS, SQL, PHP, and undergone that journey of building out websites, monetizing them. This was at a time where search engine optimization, people were just going from web 1.0 to 2.0. Small businesses were crafting their websites, trying to rank higher. And so I did some consultancy, digital marketing, also SEO optimization sorts of consultancy. There were some Google algorithm changes. So those of you that were doing the same thing back in 2011 to 2012, you remember, I'm sure, the Panda and the Penguin updates, which changed everything for like search engine optimization and e-commerce. So I had to pivot and actually grow up and be a real internet entrepreneur and change a revenue model. And so I had a couple of successful businesses. One had a recurring revenue model, annual, and then the other was more of a freemium with a tiered upsell sales funnel type of education platform. So I did essentially, for the first 10 years of my career, this internet entrepreneurship. And then I joined the pharmaceutical space as a marketing technologist to lead this digital transformation. And in that role, I architected, developed, and deployed a Salesforce instance with multi-channel orchestration, integrated telephony, the works. We had text, email, a dozen websites, microsites, outbound calls, call scripts. It was incredible. It was certainly one of my most complex and proudest achievements, and definitely set me up for success in the long run, having the opportunity to have such an impactful role at that organization. And it was there actually that I was leading a group of interns. And one of them said to me one day, can you explain to me how Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining works? And I said, this was in 2016. I said, sure, I'll tell you about that tomorrow. We don't have time today. And so that night, it was on my radar, but I made sure to research and make sure that I could teach somebody else it. Because if you don't know it if you can't teach it to somebody. And in that process, I just came enamored with Bitcoin, technology. I drank the Kool-Aid. I believed in the revolution. I was like, all right, I'm going to get me some of these Bitcoins. And then, later that year, they had its meteoric rise, from $600 to $20,000. And it was a roller coaster. And when you go through something like that technology just becomes consuming the narratives, everything that's happening in the space. And then, of course, the drop, the plunge from 20,000 to 3,000. But it was enough that I fell in love, and I was very passionate about the technology. And so I took a few years after that, focusing just on blockchain, cryptocurrencies. I did some consulting for blockchain for the enterprise, distributed ledgers, a few different use cases, how they were healthcare adjacent. So FDA track and trace, insurance prior authorizations. I also did some work with a local university on reverse transfer credits so that community college students could be awarded associate's degrees that they might not have got historically because they lost some of those requirements as they transferred to a new university. That's essentially the path that landed me with CSAA. I joined them a few years ago now as their blockchain lead to focus on these emerging technologies and strategy and innovation. And so that's where I spent, I guess, probably the first year of my work with them, and quickly started to work on other projects, fraud detection, predictive analytics, process sorts of enhancements, things beyond just blockchain and network technology. That's essentially, what landed me in this position that I have now of being able to lead this AI transformation. because I was one of the earliest adopters of the technology. Well, certainly the adopters of the technology within the organization, but also having built out prototypes and proof of concepts, leveraging the technology over a year ago for different use cases.
First of all, let's talk about claims management in insurance because people have opinions about it
They certainly do.
with good reason. So let's talk about some of the hurdles that you organizationally, industry wise, people are coming up against. And then we can talk about how generative AI works as a solution towards overcoming those hurdles.
At a high level, where I see the opportunities for impact leveraging Gen AI and AI technology, it's a very synergistic relationship with automation, advanced AI, and predictive analytics. A lot of folks feel really good about maybe more safe use cases of using Gen AI for data extraction and summarization. I think where a lot of folks struggle is with some of the more complex use cases where you might be having the AI start to create output that almost starts to look like decision making. And in our organization, we're very careful, and I personally am very careful to go there with different solutions because we have certain guiding principles. We do have a human focus, we're accountable, and we're transparent. So what does that mean, and what sort of challenges for the enterprise might that mean as you try to apply AI? The human focus, it needs to augment the human touch, not replace the human. We want to emphasize human knowledge. We want to enhance customer and employee experiences. It's all about augmentation, not replacement. Accountability. Okay, so what does that mean? We're a very highly regulated, state by state type of industry. AI is still kind of on the frontier of not having received clear regulations by any sorts of agencies, similar to maybe blockchain historically. And so we want to make sure that we're addressing the regulations that are out there, the ones that are around the corner. We protect customer data. We don't introduce bias into any of our models or any of the type of outputs, adhering to all the local laws that I said. And then the last part is transparency. And here's the challenge, especially around generative AI. It's with this type of AI-driven solutions or applications, is the output accurate? Can you reproduce the output? Is it transparent? How did we get here? And then essentially, in our case, is it explainable also? So you need to also have a rationale what that is. And so that's quite the hurdle going from this happens automatically to being able to have that audit trail or the provenance and being able to know how you got to where you are. And so that's how we're thinking about it as we move forward and try to design and apply these solutions. We have to always see it through these kind of core guiding principles of AI.
You know, when we started out our conversation, you described that aha moment with generative AI as this like give and take, playing out all the different scenarios, in your case, an entrepreneurial pursuit. But are you seeing that give and take, that interplay happening on claims management teams, for example? Where's the superpower happening, I think, is the question. Or where's the potential for a superpower happening?
What I'd actually like to share with you is the hurdle, the barriers which lie to reaching the superpower. And that I think is very intriguing, applies to a lot of businesses. And so essentially there's this fundamental knowledge gap between technologists and subject matter experts. No matter what type of industry you're in, you're going to have your tech folks and you might have your front lines or your operational folks. And there's a huge barrier and it's multifaceted. So there might as well be multiple barriers in the sense that there's a language barrier. Your technologists speak in technical terms, technical inputs. They know programming languages. They know algorithms. Your operational folks, they know industry standards, regulations, workflows, operational sorts of stuff. And there's difficulty in that knowledge share. So you have your SMEs have like deep, nuanced knowledge on what they do in their domain, which is highly contextual. And it's like very difficult to like formalize and transfer that knowledge to anybody. And so a lot of it's tacit knowledge. And then you have these technologists, which need very detailed, structured inputs to be able to create solutions for you. A barrier. There's also misaligned expectations. You have your technologists, which are aware of technical constraints, things like the data that needs to be cleaned, the integrations that need to happen to be able to do things, and also the estimates of efforts and cost to actually build out your solution. And then you have your SMEs, which are like believing the hype, believing all the marketing, like AI is magical, like we could do this, we could do that, and they're what ifing. And it's very complex to frame the problems that you need to build solutions for, because your technologists, they can't grasp the subtleties of the problem space, and your subject matter expertise can't articulate the challenges in a way that they can directly address them. And so I don't say that at anybody's expense. I think that's a fact, and I think either side would agree that those are the sorts of challenges and the barriers that lie between. And so you see folks like me that come in and need to navigate these waters, speak these languages, and be able to be a conduit or a liaison, and basically, shepherd everybody towards these solutions, these implementations. And so that's something that I feel probably resonates with a lot of folks, no matter where you are, where you sit in that story.
Yeah, that's something that I think we're seeing a lot as we, as a generative AI company, forge paths into these large organizations, is that deep partnership that needs to happen between technology, like under the CIO or the CTO, and whatever org lead, let's say a CMO, and then we have like a chief AI officer or an AI program manager who's bridging that gap. I think that's going to be a huge essential model as these organizations get through that trough of disillusion that people are happening right now.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I faced the same thing a decade ago in marketing. As you had everybody trying to understand social media marketing, pay per click, display advertising, building out websites, scaling, sales funnels and whatnot. You had your IT folks that needed to build those sorts of things, your programmers, software developers, and then you had all the marketing and sales folks. And there was, again, those barriers. How does IT build solutions for sales and marketing? And then how does sales and marketing basically instruct and teach IT how to do that? And I think that's where the MarTech space came to be. Previously, as a marketing technologist, it was being able to serve as the glue between those two divisions as well. And yeah, we're seeing the same thing with, boy, does life rhyme. We're seeing the same thing with AI and being able to basically be cross-divisional in a way that we haven't, enterprises in this instance, haven't operated before historically.
In a previous conversation with a different guest, a comment was made that people are treating AI like software, but it's not software. Would you agree with that assessment, or do you think it's pretty much software? It's just has a different flavor to it.
I really, really like this question, because maybe folks that are more data scientists and have a background, more traditional AI, predictive modeling, this sorts of thing, there might downplay the disruptive nature of generative AI. Say just, it just predicts the next best word. And that's kind of what they're not hanging their hat on, but that's you hear it said often. And I don't see it as software. And let me tell you why. There was this movie back, probably over 10 years ago. You may be familiar with it. It was called Limitless. It was about a struggling writer, a missed deadline away from being evicted. And he comes across an old colleague from, somebody from his past, and who's well-dressed and obviously successful. And he says, hey, I think I have the solution to all your problems. And he kind of pulls out this little pill, and he's like, hey, don't worry, it's FDA approved, whatever. No, it wasn't. But it's essentially this drug, which he says in the movie, they say we only use 20% of our brain. This unlocks the rest of it. This will let you access all of it. And by taking this pill, the protagonist, he can now solve any problem. He has cultural appetite. He finishes writing his book in a few days, right? Math is now useful to him, and he's unlocked his potential. That's how I feel when I use generative AI, is that I'm unlocking my true potential. I can solve any problem. I can now have more refined cultural tastes and know more about my food, my drink, my travel, my clothing, how I spend my leisure time. I can be exponentially more productive. Things that used to take me programming wise when I was building web pages like 6 months, I could do in probably hours time leveraging this technology. It truly makes a user, an enlightened user, feel limitless, like the name of that movie. And so while technically it may be just software, it represents so much more in terms of its capabilities and its potential for the people that interact with it. And so I would be on team, it's much more than software.
I love where this conversation has gone because we keep coming back to this whole idea of you being the glue between the technology and the greater story and your role. And what, by the way, what is your title?
That's a great question. So I used to be an emerging technology lead, which, that sounds really cool. But as of a few months now, I'm now the program lead for this transformation. The name of the program is a little bit maybe too descriptive. I don't want to say confidential or proprietary, but
Okay. But it's AI transformation.
exactly. So basically, what my title is, program lead, and then in brackets, AI driven transformation, place transformation, and so functionally, that's what it is.
And functionally, there are JDs at large organizations worldwide at this point. Are you talking to other peers in similar roles? I mean, how are you gaining knowledge and getting a framework together so that you can drive transformation within your own organization, but also knowledge sharing?
Fantastic question. I do like that. So there's a variety of areas where I've been able to either network professionally, but also to learn more as a JD, as the main character in my own mind here. There's events and trade shows. So in a couple of weeks, I'll be going to an AI forum, an executive AI forum hosted by a management consultancy. We've interacted with the management consultancies. Anytime you have a discussion with an insurtech or a vendor, a potential vendor partner, you see, you learn, you ask questions, you get a really good idea where the industry's at, where certain folks' technical ability is at. Actually, it was just announced yesterday, so I can talk about it. There's an industry consortium called the Risk Stream Collaborative. And historically, they focused on blockchain, being able to be a neutral, member-led, nonprofit third party to help essentially insurers build these solutions that are beneficial for the industry. And so there's that co-opetition paradox. So how do you get competitors to cooperate? They facilitate that by being this third party. And so while historically they've looked at blockchain to solve multi-party business problems, they've now just announced that they're looking at AI to solve multi-party business problems. So it is through venues that they might host. It is through interactions with vendor partners. It's through interactions with management consultancies. It's building things like the AI agents content that I put on LinkedIn. That sparks also conversations in your inbox, and you can learn there. And what I encourage folks also, especially with AI, is to build your hands-on experience and push the limits and see things firsthand. Don't take what people might say. Like if somebody says, hey, I did this cool thing, go try and do it yourself. Try and build, try to iterate off of that, try to refine something or try to make that fit your needs. And so a lot of it hands-on, but a lot of it just through networking and having these sorts of discussions.
Yeah, it's just from what I'm seeing with our customers, for example, there's no like, okay, we have a career opening for an AI program manager. It's something that people kind of fall into on purpose, right? It's you're like, there's an opportunity here that I'm going to leverage. I'm in the right place at the right time. And there are just people that are savvy that are saying, this is the next step in my career. And this has a whole new trajectory here. Any advice as you step further into your role for other folks? at organizations?
My advice for folks like me or folks trying to step into roles that might look like mine is being able to understand those barriers that I previously discussed. Basically, understand that AI, generative AI, is a technology that we all have access to. There's not a competitive differentiation there. The secret, if you will, is all in the prompting and the subject matter expertise. And that's where you're going to build your solutions. So if we kind of back into that, know your trade, know your industry, know the problems, either your own business or your enterprise, your employers, your managers, your customers, they're trying to solve, know their pain points, and then study up and become a very proficient prompt engineer and understand what you can get out of these large language models. And so that the outputs of the technology aren't generic, they're specific, useful, and impactful. And so that's where I personally believe the secret is. So the better that you can prompt these models, the better you'll be able to build solutions or ideate and create initiatives that to address problems that nobody has been able to address until this technology came along. But you have to understand the problem space. And so that's the game changer, I think, for everybody, because there's a whole host of technologists that understand this technology and can integrate it into your business. There's a variety of vendors that have fantastic platforms, fantastic offerings, great base models. The way I see it, the technology is as horrible as it's going to be today, and tomorrow it's going to be even better. And next year, we can't even imagine how great it's going to be. And so it's only going to get easier. But the things that aren't going to change are the prompting and the problems. And so that would be my advice.
Anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to discuss?
I would probably want to talk about what I'm excited about for the future, a particular use case, which I think is really exciting for me.
Let's do it.
So I am personally really excited at the idea of being able to leverage Gen AI to build out student curriculum for children. I think it would be so amazing to build out a personalized learning path for children that can real time understand their learning style, their pace, their strengths, areas for improvement, and craft a curriculum for them to progress at an optimal rate and make sure that they don't get frustrated because it's too hard, they don't get bored because it's too easy, and that you could use AI to kind of set these objectives dynamically, and adapt lessons so you have that real-time feedback and real-time understanding. And it would be completely bespoke because the curriculum could be based, on their interests, if they like animals or space or art. And it's just, I think that would be really cool. I haven't had the time. And, there's like, what is it? In life, you might be able to do 5 things really, really, really well, but you're going to want to do 20. And the difficulty is understanding, where to put your focus. And so, anyhow, I just, that's something that excites me. That's something that I've been thinking about and kind of makes me smile to think.
Do you have any teachers in your life that have been like, I want to be able to do this at scale, essentially?
No, I haven't. But I have noticed that in my professional career, post-college, there's things as an adult that excite you and you get passionate about, and you do go down the rabbit hole. You're personally committed to learning more about a subject or an area. For me, that's been things like blockchain, copywriting, now AI. But to be able to actually harness that enthusiasm and give it to children, I think that'd be really, really cool. And so that's something that I think I'll call it. I think we'll see something that looks like that in the next 5 years or so.
That's going to be your next daydreaming session with AI.
Yeah, there you go.
It's mapping out the whole plan there.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll build a curriculum for a 37-year-old male.
Awesome. Well, JD, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. I think we had a really cool conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.